So as far as our listener questions this week, we didn't get a new listener question, but if you recall from a previous episode, we had the listener question about what if the gaming version. So a event in the history of video gaming changes and how that affects our current timeline. And a couple of our listeners actually proposed new scenarios that I wanted to bring up because I thought they were interesting. Ron B., longtime listener and submitter of questions, had his own take on what if. He mentioned that over the years, there's been politicians who have tried to censor gaming, getting certain games banned, etc. What if they succeeded? What do you think gaming today would look like? Would everything be like Mario? No mature games? No first-person shooters? No horror games? Realistically, in that scenario, Nintendo probably would completely rule gaming, he says. So he wants to know our thoughts. What do you think?
Okay. If we're talking about the U.S., because there are plenty of other countries that outright ban a bunch of stuff. I was actually watching a Cat Icarus video earlier about games that are banned in multiple countries, and like, you know, Bully came up and Grand Theft Auto and Postal and, you know, stuff like that. If it happened in the U.S. to where they were just like, you know what? No more mature games, people. No more blood. No more sexual content. No more cursing. None of that. Then, yeah, gaming would be a very different place.
Do you think it would be as robust of an industry?
No, I don't think so. Because the main thing that I feel people go to gaming for, what I go to gaming for, is an escape. Like, to experience something that you can't experience in your actual life, in your real life. Like,
well, I can experience sex in my actual life, so I don't know.
No, look.
Also cursing. Okay. Also violence, if I so choose.
Yes, but you're going to get in trouble if you do that.
Yeah, but that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Violence. Yeah, I guess so. But for instance, I'm not saying I want to go around and shoot a bunch of people, because that's not something that I want to do. But in the game,
no, virtually, I love murdering people.
Yeah, virtually, it's fun.
Yeah, I'm into it.
But yeah, seeing what we know that gaming doesn't affect the masses as like politicians say it does.
Oh yeah,
like, oh my god, these violent video games should make us go out, and they're going to make us.
All of the rhetoric that would have been used, all the rhetoric that would have been used to accomplish this would have been baseless. It's still baseless. We have plenty of studies that prove otherwise. So yeah,
but yeah, for sure, Nintendo would be above and beyond of everyone, because if everything's censored, you don't have The Last of Us. You don't have. You damn near don't have any Marvel games.
Yeah, Sonic. Like, I mean, I would think Sega would probably still be around, because I don't think PlayStation already tried to be edgy. I mean, some of the more popular games, Twisted Metal, Metal Gear Solid, none of that would have been able to kind of get off the ground the way it did.
I think JRPGs would be way more popular.
Could be. It could be that gaming died in the U.S. altogether, and it ended up being just an industry in Japan, maybe making Japan a superpower because of all of the revenue it generated, and could have really hurt the U.S. economy, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. There's all kinds of
implications.
Yeah, definitely. But I think at the end of the day, the major blow is to diversity, right, and creativity, because it's not just about censorship of certain things, and it's not like a good game, even an Escape, has to have mature themes. But gaming has grown up with us since the boom, the crash, and then the rise again, the phoenix ashes of gaming, as it were, in the NES era, right? Arise, chicken. With that said, if it didn't grow up with us, then we probably may have left it behind or discarded it. And that's not to say that adults don't enjoy games aimed at children, but if that's all they were left to be, you know what I mean, and there was no kind of, then it probably wouldn't be as ubiquitous and widespread as it is now. Because right now, we have games for everyone, for every mood, for every temperament, for every style. And I myself move from delightful, sweet, and innocent gaming to, you know, the more brutal kind of hardcore stuff, back and forth, just depending on my mood. And I think a lot of people are like that. So really,
like I'm waiting for Kena Bridge of Spirits to come out physically so I can buy that. That's a very Pixar-y looking game.
Yeah.
Is it for kids? Not necessarily, but it definitely portrays itself as that with the art style. So
For sure.
you know.
So at the end of the day, when you remove diversity from a thing, diversity of thought, creativity, ideas, when you limit something, then you lose. That's just all there is to it. So the ways in which you lose, we could talk about that all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's our thoughts on that, Ron B. And then on TikTok, the Game Juice had commented, what if Nintendo caught up in power with PlayStation and Xbox? Do you think it would change much? So what the Game Juice is saying is, what if, and I would like to go all the way back to, when we started to have the big three, like back in PlayStation 2. Yeah. I think the divergence really happened Xbox 360, PS3, Wii, right?
Mm.
So what if we had the Wii with all of its gimmicks and everything, but graphically and processor-wise, it was on par. It was already HD, like the 360 and PS3. And from that point, Nintendo kept pace with the other two systems. What do you think?
Well, the funny thing is that the Wii, underpowered, already outsold those systems.
Exactly.
So it's...
What kind of devastation are we talking here? Because I think the only thing that kept the other systems in the running was that the Wii wasn't super friendly to third-party titles.
Yeah, and that's where, that's where it would suffer.
Mm-hmm. It was still difficult to develop for. Yeah.
Yeah. And are we talking like the latest systems?
Yeah, those included. I think the disparity really occurred during the 360 generation.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, that they just stayed behind.
Okay. I would say now, let's say the Switch 4K came out now.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch Pro.
Yeah, like it literally came out fall 2020 alongside the other systems.
Yeah, I don't think it would change much. And the reason I say that is because of Nintendo's history and track record. You've got people that have been gaming on Xbox and PlayStation for 2 decades, 20 years.
Yeah, back to the 360, eh?
Yeah, and never had a Nintendo console or were just never interested in it.
Now, why do you suppose they bought the 360 instead of the Nintendo console at the time?
It came out first.
Okay.
Yeah, it came out first. It was relatively cheap. It was cheaper than the PlayStation 3. The titles that were available to play on the 360 were more, mature, more competitive. You had your first, third-person shooters on there.
I would say Xbox Live gave it the edge. But here's the thing. Here's the what if. If Nintendo was keeping the pace graphically and processing power-wise with Xbox, more developers, because of Nintendo's name brand recognition, because again, ask any non-gamer in the 90s and the early 2000s to point at a gaming system and say what it is, regardless of what their point. Yeah, that's a Nintendo. That's a Nintendo.
That's a Game Boy.
That's a Game Boy. That's a PSP. Yeah, I said that. The Game Boy. Like,
right.
So
exactly.
Brand name recognition gives you the edge. It's the reason why people think Band-Aid instead of bandage strip, or they think Chicken McNugget instead of Chicken Nugget, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or Kleenex instead of tissue. Nintendo instead of whatever the hell it actually is. So when you pair that with having the graphical power and the ease of developing for as the other systems, Nintendo's creating those relationships that they don't have during this current generation. That changes the whole landscape. That paired with Nintendo's already voracious following and IP, I'm thinking it's got a lot more developers working with it on a regular basis, a lot more games in its library, a lot less exclusives that you can only play on PlayStation or Xbox and not Nintendo. And then pretty soon they're finding it a lot harder to compete. Maybe that might have been the end of Xbox, actually. Or perhaps PlayStation, since they were the ones screwing up during that generation.
Yeah, but I think now we're at the point where gaming is now, people have chosen their sides. They've chosen them.
Yeah, but again, if it changed back then their sides have changed.
Then.
That's what I'm saying.
See,
you're not listening to me. The Wii can do what the 360 and the PlayStation 3 can do.
Okay,
because that's the first time
said the new system.
No,
so I'm thinking if a Switch Pro came out now, and I even said this. I said if the Switch Pro came out now.
No, because that's what's happening. That's already life. Right. That's the reality we live in now. And the Nintendo's always a generation behind, right?
Gotcha.
So that's just going to continue to happen. But Nintendo catching up in power. When did it fall behind in power? 360 and PlayStation 3.
Right. Okay, I'll say this. Quote unquote hardcore gamers would have stayed away from the Wii simply because of the controller and motion controls.
You think so, huh?
I think so. Now, if they created a different controller, more traditional controller they came out with, and it didn't really have a gimmick, yes, but that's never been Nintendo's thing. They always have some sort of, we've talked about this before, they always have some sort of gimmick that sells their consoles. Millions of consoles at first. So I think if the Wii was as powerful, yeah, they may have sold a bit more, but again, that controller was probably a turnoff for a lot of people, even though it sold so many. Like, it's
No, I see what you mean.
It's so weird when you think about
makes you wonder,
like, how
though,
many people are
if there
available
were-
to buy things.
Yeah,
you know?
no, if there were more traditional games being made for the system because the system could handle them, like the reports maybe coming from 360 or PlayStation 3, or if more third-party developers were courting the Wii, maybe they would have developed a quote-unquote pro controller like they did for the Wii U, like they did for the Switch, right? Because at this point, they're like, we don't want to miss out on that money. Let's make it so people can use a traditional controller if they really want to. I think with the Wii, they just knew it was a very niche system, and it did exactly what it set out to do. It did not set out to give you a traditional gaming experience, and they really didn't give a shit about that. But if they had that kind of processing power and they were being courted by a lot of third-party developers making, quote-unquote more traditional games, maybe that would have created demand for a more traditional controller. I don't know. Yeah. Just because Nintendo catches up in power, it doesn't mean they're not still Nintendo. So, yeah, I see what
Well, that's the thing I like about Nintendo. Like, they don't have to be the best graphically. They don't have to.
They never did. They never did. It's, I mean, at the end of the day,
their games are enough. Their games are enough.
It's all about the creativity and what you do with what you have. I agree with that. And graphics are never going to trump gameplay or how fun a game is just to experience. You know what I mean? Like, they add to it. It's a component, certainly. But I mean, there's a lot of us that still enjoy playing like 2D games and stuff like that.
Yeah, when you have all these indie games coming out and they're getting universally praised, it's like, do graphics really matter?
Not terrible. I mean, some people they do. Honestly, some people they do. But I think they matter as much as a genre preference matters to me or you. Mm-hmm. If a game hits, it hits. The graphics are incidental. They either add to or detract, but they're not the end all be all. So,
yeah.
With that said, what if. Yeah, that's a good what if. So yeah, let's go ahead, and we're getting long in the tooth on this episode too. Which I was worried we wouldn't, but we really know how to ramble. Let me tell you.
Yeah.